Hi folks, it's Annmarie here from the Centre for Cross-Border Cooperation. This time last year I was asking for your help. I was asking you to please consider responding to our survey that was aimed at capturing some data on the cross-border workers in this region, and we were delighted that over 440 workers responded and have provided us with a wealth of evidence on the realities of cross-border employment in this region. I'm going to take a few minutes and share the results with you because I did promise to. So let's see. In order to capture the direction of flow of workers, respondents were asked to identify their country of residence and their country of employment. And you can see from that slide there, you can see that 73% of respondents lived in the north and the remaining 27% lived in the south. So if that's where they lived, where do they? Okay, so 30% of individuals who responded to the survey lived in Armagh. Next is Down, and next is Donegal. So there's not an awful lot between Down and Donegal, but 30% in Armagh was significant. And where did most people work? So 24% worked in Dublin, 18% in Louth, and 14.5% worked in Derry. Now, how long have they been a cross-border worker? I was really interested in this one. What kind of experience was the survey capturing? And it captured an absolute wealth of experience. 22% of the individuals who responded to the survey had between 5 and 10 years experience, and an additional 47% of respondents had over 10 years experience. That's altogether, that is 69% of respondents had over 5 years experience as a cross-border worker. So these are views we can't ignore. When asked why they took up a cross-border job, 37% of people mentioned financial incentives was pulling them across the border. So that's higher salaries, most often for very similar roles. 34% of people mentioned that there was much better job opportunities across the border, career advancement, better working conditions. A lack of local jobs and career opportunities in the northwest was also pulling people across the border, and a lack of permanent teaching positions in Northern Ireland were definitely pushing our teachers from north to south. Some people mentioned proximity to family and to home. So I suppose just because you're working across the border doesn't mean to say that's very far away. It can only be a very short trip in the car. So that was really important for 10% of respondents. Now, some respondents didn't start off as cross-border workers. They had originally lived and worked in the same jurisdiction, and they only became a cross-border worker due to actually moving residence where they lived. And they mentioned Dublin property prices and cheaper housing in the north and in Donegal. So there was various reasons pulling people across the border and then becoming a cross-border worker because of that change of residence. So that was an interesting one. And then asked about whether or not they actually had any information about crossing the border. An overwhelming majority of respondents did not believe they had any access to clear and concise information from official sources. That one didn't take us too much by surprise, but we were kind of hoping maybe it wouldn't have been just as large a percentage. 98% is huge. So what information were they asking for? So the survey tells us that they want information, or you guys want information on state pensions, tax, social insurance, social welfare payments, and they were kind of the big ones that really stood out at the top. Other people, and down the line a little bit, they were asking for tax on redundancy payments, recognition of qualifications, health insurance. There was a range of other questions or information needs rather that people had. There were lots of comments and suggestions captured in the survey, and one person has mentioned that they'd like a basic summary or a checklist of the implications of working across the border, with resources and a list of businesses that can help them with the planning for finances and social security. The person connected with this comment was living in Armagh and working in Dublin for 4.5 years, so I'm sure they came across a few complications in that time. And within the comment section, there were loads of other asks for information. People wanted information on banking, cross-border mortgages and loans, access and childcare and subsidies and schemes connected with childcare, access and healthcare. They want information on transferring their medical records and entitlement to medical cards. And there were numerous requests for information on the implications of working from home and employee rights to do that. that wasn't unexpected. So the recent global surge in flexible and remote working is really evident amongst the survey responses. A total of 54% of workers that responded to the survey mentioned that they worked from home. 47% of them mentioned it on an occasional basis and 7% on a full-time basis. And some of the other comments would suggest that perhaps there are even others that are sometimes working from home but aren't perhaps doing it by the book. The hybrid working is one of the most complicated scenarios with regards to payroll, income tax, social insurance implications, and not to mention all the other challenges that were mentioned within the report. So an awful lot of people are finding themselves in complicated working situations. So this slide captures some of the comments that people included in their survey response. The first person there mentions that if they did not have the flexibility to work from home, that they'd have to reconsider working across the border, that it might not be financially viable for them. They mentioned that the cost of childcare, for example, is very expensive. The next person mentions that they would genuinely consider leaving their current job because remote working has become a deal breaker for them. So it doesn't seem like they're allowed as a cross-border worker to actually work from home. So this is a significant challenge for them. And then another person has mentioned the need for a concept of an all-island worker and to be clearly defined as a tax status. So that's a good thinking of solutions there from that cross-border worker who's been working in Dublin for over 10 years. So the survey tried to capture the level of awareness that people had about the common challenges that people often find that they have whenever they've taken a cross-border job. So 65% of people had no awareness of the following challenges: the need to annually declare their income at home. They had very few had any knowledge about accessing cross-border healthcare. Very few had any knowledge about the implications that cross-border income can have on loan applications and mortgage applications. And very few as well, only 15% of individuals, found that they had any level of awareness about the impact on social security payments that taking up a cross-border job might have for them or maybe their family members. So there was a very low level of awareness among the individuals who responded to the survey. Now let's end on a positive. When we asked people would they consider a cross-border job in the future, 81% of individuals said that they would, and 19% said that they would not. Now, largely the people who said no, if they had access to better information, they would probably reconsider. But even with all of the challenges that the survey uncovered, and bearing in mind that the Border People Project usually only hears when things get complicated for people, we don't often hear the good news stories. But even so, 81% of individuals said that they would consider a cross-border job in the future. So that's absolutely brilliant. So we were delighted to see that one. So look, that just gives you a bit of a flavour of some of the things that came up in the survey. You'll get a link on the Border People website, borderpeople.info, to the full report that goes into lots of different areas. It looks at cross-border tax, social security, recognition of qualifications, remote working. There's loads and loads. Pensions, a big one. There's an awful lot of information in it, and you'll also get a link to the full details of the survey responses. So that's all from me. Thanks a million for all your support with the survey. Take care. Bye.